At my graduation party, they told me to wait outside the venue. My aunt said, "It's just for close family." I looked around. Everyone else was inside. So I grabbed my cap and gown, turned away and said, "Fine, I'll celebrate somewhere else." My dad followed me out, stunned. The night I graduated medical school, I was locked out of my own celebration. My Aunt Patricia, with a smirk I'll never forget, told me the party inside was just for close family right now. It was a betrayal so sharp, so utterly humiliating, that it felt like every childhood slight had just culminated in one devastating blow. Okay, so imagine this. I'm Hannah, 25, cap and gown on, diploma clutched tight. For grueling years of medical school are finally over. This was my night, my big celebration. And there I stood outside a fancy restaurant, staring at my Aunt Patricia. Her smile was thin, almost smug. "I'm sorry, Hannah," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "The party is just for close family right now." I peered over her shoulder, past her perfectly coiffed hair, and there they were, all my relatives. Cousins I'd only met once. Family friends. Everyone was inside. Everyone except me, the graduate. My heart didn't just sink. It plummeted. A cold, hard realization hit me like a punch to the gut. I was invisible. Again. This wasn't new though. Being my mom, Janet Williams' daughter, meant learning about sacrifice early. My mom was my world. My provider, my protector, my biggest cheerleader. My dad walked out when I was 3, and after that mom worked 3 jobs. Waitressing mornings, office admin during the day, convenience store nights on weekends. She was constantly exhausted, but she never, ever missed helping me with homework or showing up at my school events. "Education is the one thing no one can ever take from you, Hannah," she'd tell me, her eyes heavy with fatigue, but her smile unwavering, as she checked my math problems at 11 p.m. "Your brain is your ticket to freedom." Our modest 2-bedroom apartment in a less-than-ideal neighborhood became our fortress. While other kids got new clothes and the latest toys, I found magic in public libraries and secondhand bookstores. My mom somehow made sure I never felt poor. When the electricity got shut off, adventure time. Flashlights and shadow puppets became our entertainment. She always made it an adventure. Our extended family, though, that was a totally different beast. My mom's sister, Aunt Patricia, she married into serious money and never let us forget it. Their Christmas cards were these elaborate, perfect family portraits from exotic vacations, everyone in coordinating outfits. When they actually bothered to invite us to their sprawling suburban home for family gatherings, we always felt like outsiders. My cousins Emma, Jake, and Tyler had everything I didn't. Private schools, fancy summer camps, parents who showed up to every single one of their activities. Why doesn't Aunt Patricia like us? I once asked Mom after a particularly uncomfortable Thanksgiving where my aunt had openly sniped about my thrift store dress. Mom just squeezed my hand, her grip firm. "Some people measure worth by what you have, Hannah, not who you are. That's their loss, not ours." Despite all that strained family drama, I absolutely devoured school. Education became my sanctuary, the one place where effort truly equaled results. By high school, I was buried in AP classes and working part-time at a local pharmacy. The pharmacist, Dr. Santiago, became this incredible mentor. He was the one who first whispered the crazy idea of medical school into my ear. "You have a natural talent for remembering medication interactions," he told me. "And more importantly, you care about the people behind the prescriptions. That's what makes a good doctor." The dream of becoming a physician felt impossible, given our finances. But my mom? She wouldn't hear of limitations. She pored over scholarship applications with me, dragged me to college fairs, spent hours perfecting my essays. When acceptance letters started rolling in, including a partial scholarship offer from State University, we danced around our tiny kitchen, tears streaming down Mom's face. "You're going to be Dr. Williams someday," she whispered. I always knew it. College was a brutal balancing act. Academics, work-study jobs, student loans. I lived off campus with 3 roommates to save every penny. Ramen was my main food group, and sleep, a luxury I rarely indulged in. But academically I soared. Dean's List every single semester. Research positions that made my med school application shine. I was doing it. I was making it happen. Then during my senior year, a diagnosis came that shattered my entire world. Mom's persistent cough and fatigue? It wasn't just overwork. It was stage 4 lung cancer. Suddenly, my life became a blur of classes in the oncology ward. I was taking notes during her chemotherapy sessions, just like she used to review my homework. Even from her hospital bed, she was relentless. "Don't you dare pause your applications," she'd insist, her voice weak but firm. "My daughter is going to be a doctor." I got accepted to medical school with a scholarship. But Mom's condition deteriorated so fast. 6 months after her diagnosis, I was holding her hand as she took her final breath. The woman who had given everything to ensure my success wouldn't live to see me achieve it. Grief almost swallowed me whole. I seriously considered deferring my admission, but Mom's voice, her spirit, wouldn't let me. Instead, I channeled all that raw pain into purpose. Medical school became an obsession, a relentless drive to honor her memory. Her insurance policy covered the funeral and left just enough for a small down payment on a studio apartment near campus. The next 4 years, a complete blur. Anatomy labs, clinical rotations, brutal board exams, and barely suppressed grief. Every single day I felt her absence. My extended family? They pretty much vanished after Mom's funeral. Aunt Patricia sent a generic sympathy card with a $50 check. It bounced. My cousins would occasionally text on holidays, but our connection had completely shriveled. But I wasn't alone. My study partner Megan became the sister I never had my rock. Mostly though, I just poured myself into becoming the doctor my mother had envisioned. In my final year, I was even awarded the Preston Memorial Scholarship for Emerging Physicians, covering my remaining tuition. As graduation approached, I sent announcements to my extended family. More out of obligation really than any real expectation. So I was genuinely surprised when Aunt Patricia called. "We're so proud of you, Hannah," she chirped, her voice dripping with an enthusiasm I'd never heard directed at me before. "The family wants to throw you a proper graduation party. You're the doctor in the family." I was suspicious, naturally, but a tiny desperate part of me was hopeful. Maybe, just maybe, my achievement had finally earned their respect. Maybe Mom's sister was finally reaching out, trying to build a connection that would have mattered so much to Mom. "That sounds wonderful," I replied cautiously. "Leave everything to me." Patricia insisted. "Just focus on your ceremony. This will be a celebration worthy of Dr. Williams." For the first time in years, I allowed myself to feel excited about family. A turning point. A chance to heal old wounds. I even splurged on a new dress to wear under my graduation gown, wanting to look my absolute best for this new chapter. The graduation ceremony itself earlier that day had been bittersweet. Sitting there among my peers, Mom's absence was a physical ache in my chest. When Hannah Janet Williams was called, I walked across the stage accepting my diploma, scanning the audience out of habit, even though I knew no family was there. Patricia had said they'd meet me at the restaurant. I took selfies with friends trying to capture the joy. "Your mom would be so proud," my advisor said, hugging me tight. "I know," I replied, believing it with all my heart. "She's the reason I'm here." Little did I know, the real test of my strength wasn't just getting through medical school without my mother. It was facing my family's continued rejection on what should have been one of the happiest days of my life. Graduation day itself dawned gloriously. Sunshine streamed through my apartment windows as I got ready. 4 years. 4 years of grinding studies, sleepless nights, moments of pure doubt, wondering if I could really do this without Mom. And I had. Dr. Hannah Williams. The title still felt utterly surreal. I took extra time getting ready, knowing this was the day Mom had dreamed about. My dress, a knee-length navy blue with delicate lace, was a splurge, something I'd saved for weeks to afford. Professional but special. I curled my hair, carefully applied my makeup, wanting to look polished, deserving, for all the photos that would commemorate this milestone. Mom would love this, I whispered to my reflection, touching the small pendant around my neck. It held a tiny photo of her. My way of keeping her close. Throughout the ceremony, all I could think about was the party afterward. Aunt Patricia had texted me the details the night before. The Garland, 7 p.m. private room in the back. "Everyone's so excited to celebrate you." The Garland. It was one of the most upscale restaurants in town. A place I'd never dared to dream of on my student budget. The fact that Aunt Patricia had chosen it felt like a genuine effort to make this special. Despite our history, a tiny glimmer of hope ignited in my chest. Maybe, just maybe, my achievement had finally bridged the gap between us. After the ceremony, my phone buzzed with congratulatory texts from my cousins. "Can't wait to see you tonight." From Jake. "So proud of you, cuz. See you at the Garland." From Emma. "Doctor in the family. Save me some cake." From Tyler. Each message fueled my growing optimism. Maybe things really would be different now. I quickly freshened up at home, keeping my cap and gown on. Relatives had specifically mentioned wanting photos. The 15-minute drive to the Garland felt like an eternity. I mentally rehearsed gracious responses to all the congratulations I was about to receive. The restaurant was even more impressive than I'd imagined. A converted historic mansion, grand entrance, valet parking, elegant landscaping. I spotted several family cars in the lot, and a flutter of excitement erupted in my stomach. As I approached, cap and gown on, diploma case tucked under my arm, I could already hear music and laughter drifting from inside. The hostess smiled. "Welcome to the Garland. Do you have a reservation?" "I'm here for the Williams party," I explained. "I believe they have the private room." Her expression brightened. "Oh yes, they're all set up in the back. It looks wonderful. Let me get someone to show you." "Hannah, there you are." My blood ran cold. I turned to see Aunt Patricia sweeping towards me from the private room. Dressed impeccably, of course, in an expensive silk pantsuit, her salon-perfect hair unmoving. But her expression, it made my stomach instinctively clench. "I'll take it from here," she told the hostess, then turned to me with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Hannah dear, you look nice." That slight pause before nice wasn't lost on me. I pushed past the familiar sting of her judgment. Thank you for organizing this, Aunt Patricia. The restaurant is beautiful. She glanced around as if to make sure no one was listening. About that, we're just getting everything situated inside. Would you mind waiting out here for a few minutes? Just until we're ready. I blinked. Ready? But I thought. It's just for close family right now, she said firmly, smoothing an invisible wrinkle from her sleeve. We have some things to discuss before the actual celebration. Close family? The words just didn't make sense. But I am family. And isn't this party supposed to be for me? Aunt Patricia's face tightened. Of course it is, Hannah. Don't be dramatic. We just need a few minutes to finalize some things. You understand. As we stood in the entryway, I could see right past her, through the partially open door to the private room. Tables were exquisitely decorated with flowers and balloons. A banner screamed, "Congratulations, Dr. Williams." And the room? It was full. Not just immediate family, but distant relatives I barely recognized, family friends I hadn't seen in years. Everyone was inside. Everyone except me. A couple walked in behind me, giving my cap and gown curious glances. The woman smiled. "Congratulations on your graduation." "Thank you," I managed, my voice sounding distant, even to my own ears. Aunt Patricia looked annoyed by the interruption. "Just wait here. Someone will come get you when we're ready." She turned and walked back into the private room without waiting for my response. Through the door I caught another glimpse. My cousins, my uncle, at least 20 other people, all chatting, laughing, holding champagne flutes. No one looked like they were getting things ready. They were already celebrating. I stood there, frozen in the entryway, clutching my diploma case so tightly my knuckles turned white. The bitter reality slowly, painfully seeped in. This was my graduation party, and I was the only one not allowed inside. The hostess gave me a sympathetic, pained look, quickly busying herself with menus, clearly uncomfortable. My chest tightened, burning with humiliation. Memories from childhood flooded back, one after another. Being relegated to the kids' table long after my cousins had graduated to the adults. Receiving painfully obvious regifted presents at Christmas, while my cousins ripped open the latest gaming systems. Being introduced as Janet's daughter, instead of by my own name. I had genuinely believed that earning my medical degree would finally make me worthy in their eyes. But standing there in my cap and gown, diploma in hand, I realized something devastating. Nothing had changed. I was still the outsider. Still not quite good enough to be part of the close family. That same soul-crushing feeling of inadequacy that had haunted me my entire childhood crept up my spine. Was there something fundamentally unlovable about me? Something that made me less deserving of inclusion than my cousins? Logically, I knew this was their issue, not mine. But logic does absolutely nothing to soothe the raw pain of rejection, especially from people who are supposed to love you unconditionally. I found myself backing towards the door, almost bumping into another arriving guest. My hands trembled. My face burned. Part of me wanted to storm into that room, push past Aunt Patricia, and demand the recognition I'd earned. But another part, the little girl who had learned early to expect disappointment from everyone except her mother, just wanted to disappear. "Is everything okay, miss?" the hostess asked, her voice filled with genuine concern. I couldn't answer. My throat had completely closed up. I was dangerously close to tears. The celebration sounds from the private room, the laughter, the clinking glasses, seemed to grow louder, mocking me. Someone inside let out a carefree laugh, a sound that pierced me like a physical blow. For a moment I stood suspended between fight and flight, utterly uncertain which instinct would win. Then my phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Megan. "How's the family party going? Sending you strength." Megan. My study partner, the one who'd seen me through panic attacks before exams. Who'd held me when I cried on the anniversaries of my mother's death. Megan, who was more family to me than anyone in that private room. That text was the lifeline I desperately needed. It pulled me back from the edge of a public breakdown. I took a deep, shuddering breath, straightened my shoulders, and made a decision. I would not beg. Not for a place at my own celebration. Another 20 agonizing minutes passed as I stood awkwardly in the lobby. Each minute stretched into an eternity, marked by curious glances from arriving diners and increasingly worried looks from the hostess, who had offered me water twice. I kept checking my phone, half hoping for a text inviting me in, half considering calling an Uber to escape this absolute humiliation. "Are you waiting for your party, honey?" an elderly woman asked, leaving with her husband. "Do you need help finding them?" I forced a tight smile. "No, thank you. They know I'm here." And that was the worst part. They knew exactly where I was. Just outside the door, excluded from my own graduation celebration. I texted Megan. "You won't believe this." Standing outside my own party, Patricia said, "It's just for close family right now." Her response was immediate. "WTF? That's your party. Want me to come down there?" "Not yet," I replied. "Just needed to vent." I scrolled through old photos on my phone to distract myself, stopping on one from my 12th birthday. Mom had saved for months to throw me a small party at the local skating rink. She'd invited my entire class and extended family. Only 2 classmates showed up. No family. We later found out Aunt Patricia had hosted a pool party for Emma that same day, even though Mom had specifically mentioned my birthday when summer plans were discussed. When confronted, Aunt Patricia had simply said, "Well, Emma's friends were already counting on this date. I'm sure Hannah understands." I hadn't understood. Not really. Mom had tried to make it special anyway. Skating with me and my 2 friends, buying an ice cream cake, taking silly photo booth pictures that I still treasured. But I remembered crying that night, asking Mom what was so wrong with me that my own family didn't want to celebrate me. Another memory surfaced, my high school graduation. Mom had been so proud, cheering loudly as I walked across the stage. We'd planned a small dinner afterward, inviting Aunt Patricia's family and a few other relatives. Only Uncle Robert showed up, bringing a card signed by everyone else, claiming various last-minute conflicts. Later that week, social media revealed the truth. They had all attended a baseball game together instead. My thoughts were interrupted as the restaurant door opened. My cousin Jake stepped out, looking incredibly uncomfortable. "Hey," he mumbled, not quite meeting my eyes. "Sorry about the wait." I crossed my arms. "What's going on, Jake? Why am I standing out here while everyone else is inside?" He shifted his weight, looking exactly like he had when we were kids and he was lying about who broke Grandma's vase. "Aunt Patricia is just organizing a surprise. You know how she is about having everything perfect. A surprise at my graduation party that I'm not allowed to attend?" Jake winced. "It's not like that. She just wants to make an announcement before you come in. It'll just be a few more minutes." Through the door behind him, I could see people already eating appetizers and drinking champagne. Someone was taking group photos. This didn't look like preparation for a surprise. This looked like a party in full glorious swing. "Jake, be honest with me. What is really happening?" He finally met my gaze, guilt written all over his face. "Look, I don't agree with it, okay? I told Mom this was messed up, but you know how she gets." "How she gets about what?" I pressed. He lowered his voice, almost whispering. "She's making this big speech about how proud the family is to have a doctor now, and how we've all supported you through medical school. Some people from Dad's firm are here, important clients. She's kind of making it seem like they paid for your education." The audacity. It was breathtaking. "They didn't give me a dime, Jake. Your mom sent me a sympathy card when my mother died with a check that bounced. None of you even came to my white coat ceremony." Jake had the decency to look deeply ashamed. I know I should have been there. It's just, you know how it is." I didn't know. I had always been the family obligation, never a true member of their inner circle. The poor relation they occasionally remembered out of duty, not love. "I'm sorry, Hannah. I really am proud of you," Jake said, sounding sincere for the first time. "I should get back inside before Mom notices I'm gone." As he retreated, the hurt I felt transformed, became something hotter, sharper. Anger. How dare they use my accomplishment as social currency, while explicitly excluding me from the celebration? How dare Aunt Patricia pretend she had anything to do with my success? I thought about my mother, the woman who had worked herself to exhaustion to give me opportunities, who had helped me study for the MCAT while undergoing chemotherapy, who had made me promise on her deathbed to finish what we started. "Don't let anything stop you," she had whispered, her hand frail in mine. "And don't let anyone make you feel small. You're meant for big things, Hannah." Standing outside that restaurant in my cap and gown, I felt her absence like a physical ache. Mom would have marched into that room and demanded respect for her daughter. But Mom wasn't here. It was just me, and I had a choice to make. My phone buzzed again. It was Megan. "What's the address?" "I'm coming." In that moment something clicked. Family wasn't defined by blood. It was defined by who showed up for you, who celebrated your victories, who helped you through defeats. By that definition, Aunt Patricia and most of the people in that room, they weren't my family at all. I looked through the glass door at the celebration I was excluded from. Aunt Patricia was at the center of attention, gesturing dramatically to a group of well-dressed strangers. This wasn't about me. It had never been about me. It was about Aunt Patricia's desperate desire to associate herself with my achievement, without having to acknowledge her complete failure to support me when it actually mattered. It was all about appearance, about the story she wanted to tell, not the truth of what had happened. The realization didn't magically erase the hurt, but it brought a shocking clarity. I was done. Done waiting for approval from people who had no intention of ever truly giving it. Done making myself small, to fit into spaces where I wasn't genuinely wanted. I was my mother's daughter, and it was time I stood up for myself, just like she always had for me. After nearly 40 minutes, I had become part of the restaurant's decor. The hostess had stopped asking if I needed anything. New arrivals barely even noticed me. I was just the woman in graduation regalia, perpetually waiting. Through the partially open door I could still see the party. A waiter passed by with a tray of elegant desserts, tiny chocolate things topped with edible gold. Mom would have laughed, Food you wear, not eat. I shifted to get a better view and froze. Aunt Patricia was at the head of the main table, champagne glass raised. The room quieted. Her voice, clear and strong, carried right to me. As I was saying, she proclaimed, our family has always valued education above all else. When my dear sister Janet passed, Robert and I promised we would ensure Hannah completed her journey to becoming a doctor. It wasn't easy, but family takes care of family. The blatant lies stole the breath right from my lungs. Not only had they offered zero support, but Aunt Patricia had actually discouraged me from wasting money on more school after Mom died, suggesting I get a real job. And now, she continued, we're so proud to celebrate Dr. Hannah Williams, the physician in our family. Though she's running fashionably late today, light laughter rippled through the room. We couldn't be prouder of her accomplishment and our part in it. I must have made a sound because the hostess glanced at me, concerned. Inside, someone had placed a large portrait of me in my white coat on an easel. My official medical school photo. Next to it, a smaller framed photo of my mother, the very same one I kept on my nightstand. The sight of Mom's image being used in this grotesque charade was the final absolute straw. A waiter slipped out to the lobby. Excuse me, Miss Williams. I believe you're the guest of honor. I nodded beyond words. Your aunt asked me to check if you were still waiting. She said to tell you they're almost ready for you. Almost ready? After 45 minutes at my own graduation party? How many people are in there? I asked. He glanced back. About 50, I think. It's quite a turnout. 50 people. Celebrating an achievement they had nothing to do with, while the actual graduate stood outside like an unwanted delivery. I ran through my options. Continue waiting, eventually be allowed in and pretend none of this happened? Barge in, make a scene, expose Aunt Patricia's lies? Or leave quietly? Let them continue their farce without me? What would serve my dignity best? What would honor my mother's memory, the value she'd instilled in me? Mom had always emphasized taking the high road, but she'd also taught me that self-respect was non-negotiable. Never beg for a seat at a table where you're not valued, she told me once. Build your own table instead. As I stood there deliberating, I watched through the door as a waiter brought out a massive cake, decorated with "Congratulations, Dr. Williams," in elegant script. Aunt Patricia was already positioning herself next to it, clearly planning to be in all the photos. My cousin Emma was adjusting the banner, making sure it would be perfectly visible. They were crafting a narrative, one that completely erased my struggle, my mother's sacrifice, and their own glaring absence during the hardest years of my life. They were rewriting history, casting themselves as the supportive, generous family they had never been. The realization hit me with stunning clarity. Nothing I could say or do would change who they fundamentally were. No achievement of mine would ever be enough to make them truly accept me. I could become Surgeon General, and Aunt Patricia would still find a way to make me wait outside my own celebration while she took credit. I looked down at my graduation gown, the academic regalia I had worked so incredibly hard to earn. The blue and gold of my university, the honor cord signifying distinction. This was mine. My accomplishment. My moment. And I absolutely refused to let it be hijacked by people who didn't deserve to share in it. With sudden fierce resolve, I began unfastening my gown. I slipped it off, then my cap, carefully folding them over my arm along with my diploma case. The hostess watched wide-eyed. I squared my shoulders, took a deep breath. I walked to the private room door and pushed it open, just enough to catch Aunt Patricia's eye. The conversations nearest the door faltered as people noticed me standing there. My aunt's smile flickered, just for a split second before she recovered. There she is, she exclaimed, not quite loud enough to interrupt the conversations happening farther back. We're almost ready for your grand entrance, dear. I met her gaze steady. No need, Aunt Patricia. I can see you're all having a wonderful time celebrating something. But since this is clearly not actually about me, I'll leave you to it. Her smile hardened. Don't be ridiculous, Hannah. Of course this is about you. We're all here to celebrate you. Really? I shot back, my voice gaining strength. Because I've been standing outside for nearly an hour while you told everyone how you supported me through medical school. Which is interesting, since I haven't seen you since Mom's funeral 4 years ago. A few nearby conversations died completely as people tuned into our exchange. Patricia's eyes darted around nervously. This isn't the time or place for dramatics, she hissed. We can discuss any misunderstandings later. I shook my head. There's no misunderstanding. You wanted the social capital of having a doctor in the family without having to actually support me becoming one. You wanted the party without the person. Message received. Loud and clear. I held up my folded gown and cap. I'll take these and my actual achievements elsewhere. I guess I'll celebrate with people who were actually there for me during the journey. The shocked silence that followed was deeply, profoundly satisfying. For once, Aunt Patricia seemed utterly speechless. My cousin Jake half rose from his seat, looking completely conflicted, while Emma and Tyler stared open-mouthed. Hannah, wait. Uncle Robert started. But I was already turning away. As I walked out of that restaurant, a strange mix of emotions washed over me. Hurt, Yes, and burning anger, but also a surprising, liberating lightness. For the first time in my life, I had stood up to the toxic family dynamics that had made me feel inadequate for as long as I could remember. I refused to accept scraps of attention when I deserved a full place at the table. Outside in the warm evening air, I took a deep shaky breath and texted Megan. I'm leaving. Can I come over? Her response was instant. Already setting up. Bring ice. I smiled through the tears that finally escaped. My chosen family might be smaller, but it was real. And that was worth celebrating. I only made it 3 blocks from the Garland before I had to pull into a gas station parking lot. I couldn't see through my tears. The full crushing weight of what had just happened crashed over me. I sat there, clutching my carefully folded graduation gown and sobbed. Deep body-shaking sobs that came from a place of accumulated grief. I cried for my mother, who should have been there. For the family support I had never received. For the little girl inside me, who still craved validation from people who would never, ever give it. When the initial storm passed, I called Megan, my voice still thick with emotion. They're throwing a party for me that I'm not allowed to attend. I choked out, the absurdity of it all hitting me anew. Patricia is literally taking credit for putting me through medical school. Those absolute trash humans. Megan fumed. I knew your aunt was bad, but this is another level. I wiped my eyes, smudging my makeup. I don't know why I'm even surprised. This is just more of the same, isn't it? Exactly, she countered. Which is why you're better off without them. Come over now. I've already texted the group. What group? I asked, confused. The real celebration committee, she declared with fierce determination. Just get your butt over here and bring ice. By the time I arrived at Megan's apartment 20 minutes later, my phone was buzzing relentlessly. Multiple texts from Jake. That was messed up. I'm sorry. Mom is trying to spin it like you had a meltdown. Are you okay? Where are you? And surprisingly, one from Uncle Robert. Your mother would be ashamed of how you were treated today. I should have spoken up sooner. This isn't right. I silenced my phone and focused on climbing the stairs. Ice bag in one hand, my graduation regalia and diploma in the other. When Megan opened the door, I was greeted by celebratory music and hastily hung decorations. A handwritten congrats. Dr. Hannah banner stretched across her living room, blue and gold balloons taped to the walls. But even more surprising were the people gathered there. Dr. Santiago from the pharmacy, my entire medical school study group, 2 of my favorite professors, and several friends from my clinical rotations. At least 15 people, all smiling, all cheering as I walked in. Surprise! Megan said, hugging me tightly. The real celebration, with people who actually give a damn about you. I stood frozen in the doorway, overwhelmed by this spontaneous outpouring of support. How did you group text? I managed. Everyone dropped what they were doing, she replied. That's what real family does. Dr. Santiago approached, his hair grayer now, but his kind eyes unchanged. I wouldn't have missed celebrating this milestone with you, Hannah. I still remember the teenager who asked me 1,000 questions about drug interactions. I knew then you'd make an exceptional doctor. My anatomy professor, Dr. Chin, raised a glass. To Dr. Williams, one of the most dedicated students I've had the pleasure of teaching. Your mother would be bursting with pride. The genuine warmth in that room was like stepping into sunshine after years in shadow. These people had actually been part of my journey. They had witnessed my struggles and successes. They had offered help when I needed it, celebrated my incremental victories along the way. As we crowded into Megan's small apartment, sharing impromptu toasts and stories, my phone continued to buzz. I finally checked it, seeing a flurry of social media notifications. My cousins and other family members had started posting public congratulatory messages. So proud of my brilliant cousin, Dr. Hannah Williams. #FamilyPride, #Doctor in the Family, from Emma, who had barely spoken 10 words to me in 4 years. Major respect for my cousin completing med school despite incredible challenges. #Inspiration from Tyler, who had never once checked on me after Mom died. The duplicity was staggering. They were crafting a public narrative of family support, while the reality couldn't have been more different. I showed Megan, who rolled her eyes dramatically. Classic. They're damage controlling. Bet Aunt Patricia is making them post that stuff. Before I could respond, my phone rang. An unknown number. I almost declined it, but something made me answer. Is this Hannah Williams? A woman's voice asked. Yes, this is she. This is Marjorie, the events manager at the Garland. I wanted to personally apologize for what happened this evening. Your situation was brought to my attention by several of our staff who were very concerned. I stepped into Megan's bedroom for privacy. Oh, thank you, but it wasn't the restaurant's fault. Nevertheless, what happened was unacceptable. I've worked here for 15 years, and I've never seen anything quite like it. She paused. I should tell you that shortly after you left, quite a scene developed. Several people walked out, including an older gentleman I believe was your uncle. My heart skipped. Uncle Robert left? Yes, and he was quite vocal about his disapproval. 2 younger men followed him. They appeared to be around your age, Jake and Tyler. That was Unexpected. The party broke up rather quickly after that, Marjorie continued. Your aunt tried to continue as if nothing had happened, but it was awkward to say the least. A small petty part of me was gratified to hear that my departure had completely disrupted their carefully orchestrated event. But mostly I was shocked that Uncle Robert and my cousins had actually taken a stand. I appreciate you letting me know, I told her. There's one more thing, she added. The gentleman, your uncle, settled the bill in full, but left instructions that the cake was to be delivered to you. He left your address with us. Would tomorrow morning be acceptable? I gave her Megan's address instead, thanked her, and returned to the living room with a strange warm feeling of vindication. At least some of my family had recognized the injustice. As the evening progressed, I received 3 more calls from Uncle Robert, which I let go to voicemail, not ready to talk. But I did listen to his messages. His voice was filled with genuine remorse. Hannah, it's Uncle Robert. What happened tonight was inexcusable. Patricia had no right to treat you that way, especially not on your graduation day. I should have put a stop to it immediately. Please call me back when you can. It's me again. I've left the party, so have Jake and Tyler. We're at the diner on Main if you want to join us. No pressure, but the door is open. Just checking if you're okay. I understand if you don't want to talk right now. Just know that I'm truly sorry, and I'd like to make it right if you'll give me the chance. I showed the messages to Megan, who had been my rock through every medical school crisis. What do you think? I asked her. Should I call him back? She considered it seriously. He's making an effort. That's more than can be said for the rest of them. Maybe hear him out but set boundaries. You don't owe anyone automatic forgiveness. I nodded, feeling a new sense of empowerment. For too long, I had accepted whatever scraps of family connection were thrown my way. But standing up for myself at that restaurant had shifted something fundamental inside me. I deserved better. And for the first time I truly believed it. My phone chimed with a text from Jake. I messed up big time. Should have stood up for you right away. Left with Dad and Tyler. Can we talk tomorrow? The celebration around me continued. Genuine, warm, supportive. These people had shown up for me when it counted. They were celebrating my achievement, not using it for their own social capital. This was what family was supposed to feel like. Dr. Santiago raised his glass again. I propose another toast, not just to Hannah's achievement but to her character. Janet raised a daughter with integrity, persistence, and compassion. Those qualities will make you an exceptional physician. As everyone clinked glasses, my anatomy lab partner Marcus called out, "Speech from the doctor." Surrounded by people who actually cared about me, I found my voice. I couldn't have done this without all of you. Medical school is impossible to get through alone, and each of you helped me in ways you might not even realize. My voice caught. My mom used to say that family isn't just about blood, it's about who shows up. All of you showed up. Not just today, but throughout this entire journey. I raised my glass, feeling a bittersweet mixture of grief and gratitude. To my mom who started me on this path, and to all of you, my chosen family, who helped me finish it. As tears welled, my phone buzzed again with another text. This one from an unexpected source. Aunt Patricia, your behavior tonight was embarrassing and childish. After all we've done for you, this is how you repay us? You've always had a flair for drama. Just like your mother. I showed it to Megan, who gasped in outrage. But instead of the deep hurt I might have felt before, I found myself laughing. The message was so transparently manipulative, so clearly designed to make me question my own reality, that it had lost all its power. What are you going to do? Megan asked. I deleted the message without responding and put my phone away. I'm going to celebrate becoming a doctor with people who are actually happy for me. The rest can wait until tomorrow. For the first time in years I felt truly free. Not free of grief for my mother, which would always be a part of me, but free of the desperate need for approval from people who would never freely give it. I had built my own table just as Mom had advised, and it was filled with people who genuinely cared. That night, surrounded by genuine support and celebration, I finally understood that I hadn't lost family when my mother died. I had simply needed to recognize the family I already had. The morning after graduation dawned bright and clear, both outside and within me. I woke on Megan's couch to the comforting smell of coffee and the gentle clatter of breakfast being made. My head ached slightly from the celebratory champagne, but the emotional hangover I'd expected? It was surprisingly absent. In its place was a sense of utter clarity I hadn't felt in years. Morning, doctor, Megan chirped, handing me a steaming mug. How's it feel to be both a doctor and an official family rebel? I laughed, sitting up and gratefully accepting the coffee. Surprisingly good, though I have about 20 missed calls to deal with. My phone had indeed been lighting up since dawn. Messages from Uncle Robert, Jake, Tyler, and even Emma. Conspicuously absent was any communication from Aunt Patricia, beyond her passive-aggressive text from the night before. I scrolled through them, sipping my coffee, trying to decide my next move. The cake's being delivered at 10, I reminded Megan. Yes. Stolen graduation cake for breakfast. I am here for this level of petty. Around 9:30, while we were still in our pajamas, discussing whether to respond to any of the messages, there was an unexpected knock at the door. Megan peeked through the peephole and turned to me wide-eyed. "It's your Aunt Patricia," she whispered. "And she does not look happy." My stomach dropped. I hadn't given the Garland Megan's address. Only Uncle Robert had that. He must have told his wife. "You don't have to see her," Megan said firmly. "I can tell her to leave." I considered it. Running away or hiding would just reinforce the same old dynamic. Aunt Patricia as the authority figure, me as the chastised child. It was time to change that pattern. "No, I'll talk to her," I decided, standing up. "But here on my terms." I quickly ran a brush through my hair and straightened my wrinkled clothes. Not ideal, but this wasn't about appearances anymore. When I opened the door, Patricia stood there, in another impeccable outfit, her handbag clutched tightly like armor. Her lips were pressed into a thin line, her entire posture radiating disapproval. "May I come in?" she asked stiffly. "You can say whatever you came to say from there," I replied, surprised by the steady strength in my voice. Her eyes narrowed at this defiance. "This isn't a conversation for hallways, Hannah. I raised you better than that." "Actually," I corrected, "you didn't raise me at all. My mother did. And she taught me that respect is earned, not automatically granted based on family title." Patricia flinched almost imperceptibly. For a split second I saw something flicker across her face. Not anger, but something more complex. "Fine," she said after a pause, her voice regaining its rigidity. "I came to tell you that your behavior yesterday was unacceptable. Do you have any idea how much that party cost? How many important connections were there specifically to meet you? You embarrassed the entire family." I leaned against the doorframe, considering her words. That's interesting, because from where I was standing outside my own party, it seemed like the event was more about you than me. You were taking credit for supporting me through medical school, when we both know that's not true. "We are family," she insisted. "Your accomplishments reflect on all of us." "Family," I repeated, the word bitter on my tongue. Where was this family when Mom was dying? Where was this family when I was working 3 jobs to make rent during my first year of medical school? Where were you, Aunt Patricia, when I needed actual support, not a performative party after I'd already succeeded? She adjusted her handbag, clearly uncomfortable. "Your mother chose her path. She always had to do everything her own way, even when we offered help." This blatant revision of history ignited something fierce inside me. What help? When Mom worked herself to exhaustion, providing for me because her family, your family, decided she wasn't worth supporting when she became a single mother. You all judged her, excluded her, made her feel less than. And then you did the exact same thing to me. "That's not true," she protested, but her voice lacked conviction. "It is true. And you know what's sad? I spent years thinking if I just achieved enough, if I just became successful enough, you would finally accept me. But standing outside that restaurant yesterday, I realized it would never be enough. The problem was never me. It was you." Aunt Patricia's carefully maintained facade cracked slightly. "You don't understand. Things were complicated with your mother and me." "Then help me understand," I challenged. "Because from my perspective, you've treated me like an unwanted obligation my entire life." She was silent for a long moment, staring past me into the apartment. When she finally spoke, her voice was quieter, almost a confession. "Your mother was always the smart one, the pretty one, the one everyone adored. I was the practical one, the responsible one. I did everything right, married well, maintained the family connections, upheld our social standing. Janet threw it all away for your father, who everyone knew was unreliable." I stared at her, a shocking realization dawning. "You were jealous of her." "I was concerned," she corrected quickly, but we both heard the lie. When he left and she struggled, I thought she would finally admit she had made a mistake, that she needed our help, my help. But she never did. She was too proud. She was too hurt, I countered. By her family's judgment, by her conditional love. Aunt Patricia looked away. "When she got sick, I didn't know how bad it was. She didn't tell me until it was advanced. By then it was too late to reconcile," I finished for her. "And after she died, instead of making amends by supporting her daughter, you just continued the same pattern." Something that might have been shame crossed her face. "I didn't know how to bridge that gap. And then you were achieving everything on your own, just like she would have done." Megan appeared at my shoulder, a silent show of support, and Patricia glanced between us, seeming to register for the first time that I wasn't alone or defenseless. "The party was supposed to be a gesture," she said finally. "A recognition. It was a performance," I corrected gently. "For your friends and connections. Not for me. If you had wanted to genuinely celebrate me, you wouldn't have made me wait outside like an unwelcome guest." Before she could respond, the elevator dinged, and a delivery person appeared with an enormous cake box. Delivery for Dr. Williams. The timing was almost comical. Aunt Patricia stared at the cake, then back at me. Robert arranged for this? I nodded. He, Jake, and Tyler left the party after I did. They seem to understand what you still don't. That family means showing up when it matters, not just when it's convenient or socially advantageous. She absorbed this information with visible discomfort. For perhaps the first time in our relationship, I saw Aunt Patricia at a loss for words. The carefully constructed narrative she had built of the generous aunt supporting her less fortunate niece was crumbling before her eyes. After the delivery person handed off the cake to Megan, an awkward silence fell between us. I waited, no longer feeling the need to fill the space or make things easier for her. I should go, she finally said. Clearly, this isn't the right time. When would be the right time, Aunt Patricia? I challenged. After years of exclusion and judgment, when exactly would be the appropriate moment to address it? She had no answer. As she turned to leave, I felt not the triumph I might have expected, but a strange kind of pity. My aunt had spent so many years maintaining appearances and hierarchies that she had missed the true meaning of family, the unconditional support and celebration of each other's joys that my mother had embodied. For what it's worth, I called after her, I would have welcomed a genuine relationship with you and the family, not because of what you could give me materially, but because you were my mother's sister. That meant something to me. She paused but didn't turn around. After a moment, she continued toward the elevator, her shoulders rigid with pride or regret. Perhaps both. Later that day, I finally returned Uncle Robert's calls. Our conversation was tentative, years of distance creating an awkwardness neither of us quite knew how to navigate. I failed you and your mother, he said bluntly, skipping past any pleasantries. I let Patricia dictate our family relationships because it was easier than standing up to her. Yesterday, watching you stand alone outside your own celebration, it was like seeing your mother all over again. I couldn't be complicit anymore. What happened after I left? I asked. He chuckled, but there was no humor in it. I told Patricia she had gone too far. Jake and Tyler agreed. We walked out, and about half the guests followed us, including most of the actual family members. Those business associates she was so eager to impress were left rather confused about the whole situation. This revelation actually stunned me. Half the guests left? Your cousin Emma stayed, he added. But she texted me later saying she regretted not leaving too. Patricia has a strong influence over her. We talked for nearly an hour, Uncle Robert filling in so many gaps in my understanding of the complex family dynamics that had shaped my childhood. My mother's decision to marry against family wishes. The subsequent ostracism when the marriage failed. The complicated, bitter relationship between the sisters that had begun in childhood and poisoned everything that came after. None of this excuses how you were treated, he emphasized. But I want you to know, Hannah, it was never about you. It was old wounds and jealousies that existed long before you were born. That doesn't make it hurt any less, I said honestly. No, he sighed. I suppose it doesn't. He paused. Jake and Tyler would like to see you if you're willing. They're genuinely sorry. They've always looked up to you, you know. Your determination, your independence, qualities their mother didn't necessarily encourage in them. I promised to think about it, not ready to commit to more family interactions just yet. When we ended the call, I felt a strange mixture of closure and a new beginning. The conversation hadn't erased the hurt of years of exclusion, but it had provided context I had never had before. Over the next few weeks as I prepared for my residency in Boston, I received tentative outreach from various family members. Jake invited me to coffee, where he awkwardly but sincerely apologized for years of going along with his mother's treatment of me. Emma sent a handwritten card, congratulating me and expressing regret for her role in the party debacle. Even Tyler, the cousin I'd had the least connection with, texted asking if we could reconnect. Aunt Patricia remained conspicuously silent, but Uncle Robert reported that my confrontation had shaken her more than she would ever admit. She's not good at acknowledging when she's wrong, he explained. Never has been. But she knows she crossed the line this time. I decided to accept these tentative olive branches from my cousins, while maintaining healthy boundaries. We weren't going to become an instantly close-knit family after years of distance. But perhaps we could build something new, a relationship based on who we were as adults, rather than the distorted dynamics established in childhood. More surprisingly, I found myself considering family therapy with those willing to participate. Not to excuse the past, but to understand it better and create healthier patterns moving forward. My medical training had taught me that sometimes, the most painful wounds needed to be reopened and cleaned before they could properly heal. As I packed for my move to Boston, I placed my mother's photo carefully between layers of clothing. I did it, Mom, I whispered. Not just becoming a doctor, but standing up for myself the way you always wanted me to. I didn't need a fancy party or family validation to know she would have been proud. 1 year after that disastrous graduation party, I stood in the cheerful sun-drenched backyard of my new apartment in Boston. Around me were old friends, new colleagues from my residency, and most surprisingly, a small contingent of family members. Uncle Robert, looking delightfully out of place, was manning the grill with unnecessary seriousness. Jake was deep in conversation with Megan about a patient case I'd consulted them both on. Emma was helping arrange a table laden with potluck dishes. A handmade banner, Megan's handiwork, declared Year Residency Survivor Celebration, complete with anatomically correct heart drawings that made some of the non-medical guests slightly uncomfortable. I surveyed the scene with a quiet, profound sense of satisfaction. This gathering was everything last year's party wasn't. Genuine, relaxed, centered around actual relationships rather than empty appearances. No one was performing for social media, no one was taking credit for my accomplishments. It was simply people who cared about each other, enjoying a beautiful summer day. The path to this moment hadn't been straight or easy. The months following my confrontation with Aunt Patricia had been filled with awkward family dynamics, tentative reconciliations, and occasional backsliding into old patterns. Uncle Robert, Jake, Emma, and I had started family therapy, meeting monthly with a skilled therapist. Our first sessions were comically tense, none of us quite knowing how to bridge years of distance and hurt. But slowly, bit by bit, we began to unpack the complex history that had shaped our relationships. Uncle Robert spoke candidly about his regret at not standing up to his wife sooner. Jake and Emma shared their own experiences growing up under Aunt Patricia's exacting standards, the conditional approval they faced, different from my exclusion, but damaging in its own way. I always thought you had it better because you had freedom, Emma admitted during one session. Mom was so controlling of every aspect of my life. Everything was about maintaining the right image. And I thought you had it better because you had security and belonging, I countered. I would have traded some freedom for knowing I had family support. These raw realizations helped us develop empathy for each other's experiences. We weren't comparing traumas or competing for who had it worse. We were finally truly seeing each other. Aunt Patricia, of course, refused therapy, insisting it was unnecessary drama. Her absence was palpable, but in some ways it allowed the rest of us to speak more freely. Uncle Robert had begun standing up to her more consistently, refusing to enable behaviors that damaged family relationships. It created tension in their marriage, but he seemed finally more at peace with himself. Your mother would be proud of you, he told me one day after a particularly productive session. Not just for becoming a doctor, but for forcing us all to face some hard truths. Professionally, my first year of residency had been the expected whirlwind: exhaustion, intense learning, and occasional triumphs. Boston General's internal medicine program was notoriously rigorous. There were days I questioned if I had the stamina to continue, but the resilience I developed throughout my life, through all those challenges with Mom and Aunt Patricia, served me incredibly well. What surprised me most was how my personal experience with family dysfunction had unexpectedly become an asset in my medical practice. I found I had a particular sensitivity to patients whose illnesses were complicated by their family dynamics. The elderly man whose children couldn't agree on his care plan. The teenager with mysterious symptoms exacerbated by parental conflict. The young mother navigating treatment decisions without family support. You have a gift for this, my attending physician commented after watching me mediate a difficult family meeting. Most residents your level would have gotten frustrated and walked out. I've had some practice, I replied simply. As the backyard celebration continued around me, I found myself drawn to the small memorial table I'd set up in a quiet corner. My mother's photograph stood surrounded by a few meaningful items: her favorite book, the stethoscope she'd given me when I was accepted to medical school, and a small jar containing sand from the beach where we'd scattered her ashes. Having a moment? Megan asked, appearing at my side with 2 glasses of lemonade. I smiled, accepting the drink. Just thinking about how much has changed in a year. From standing outside your own party to hosting one. That's what I call character development, she quipped. We clinked glasses, watching the gathering evolve around us. New connections were forming. My residency mentor deep in conversation with Dr. Santiago, who had driven all the way from my hometown. Jake showing my colleague Priya pictures of his new puppy. Uncle Robert earnestly discussing grilling techniques with my landlord. You've built something good here, Megan observed. Your own kind of family. The term chosen family had always felt a little cliché to me, but looking around I couldn't deny its accuracy. These were the people who showed up, not because of obligation or social expectation, but because of genuine care and connection. Some were related by blood, others by shared experience, but all had earned their place in my life through consistent presence and support. Aunt Patricia's absence was noticeable, but not painful. After months of minimal contact, she had sent a brief note acknowledging that perhaps she had misjudged some situations, as close to an apology as she was likely to offer. I had responded with equal brevity, leaving the door open for future reconciliation without expecting it. Our relationship remained tentative and distant, but the toxic power she had once held over me was finally gone. Dr. Williams, one of my interns called out, waving me over to settle a good-natured debate about a recent medical journal article. As I joined the group, I caught Uncle Robert watching me with an expression that reminded me powerfully of my mother, a mixture of pride and wistfulness that made my heart contract. Later, as the evening wound down and guests began to depart, Uncle Robert helped me carry dishes into the kitchen. Your mother loved gatherings like this, he said unexpectedly. Nothing fancy, just good people enjoying each other's company. Patricia always thought Janet's parties were too casual, not impressive enough, but they were always the ones people actually enjoyed. I paused, hands deep in soapy water. I didn't know that about her. There's a lot you might not know. She was a remarkable woman, your mother. Stubborn as hell, of course, a family trait you've clearly inherited, he said, smiling wryly. She would be so proud of the life you're building, Hannah. Not just the doctor part, though. That too. But the way you've learned to stand up for yourself while still keeping your heart open. That's no small thing. As the last guest departed and quiet settled over the apartment, I sat alone on my small balcony, watching the city lights against the darkening sky. The journey from that humiliating moment outside the Garland to this peaceful evening had taught me lessons no medical textbook could contain. I had learned that family was defined not by DNA, but by consistent presence and genuine support. That standing up for yourself wasn't selfish, but necessary for an authentic life. That healing often required confronting painful truths, rather than maintaining comfortable illusions. And perhaps most importantly, that belonging was not something to be earned through achievement or pleasing others, but something to be built through mutual respect and care. My phone buzzed with a text from Megan. Best party ever. Your mom would have loved it. I smiled, feeling my mother's presence not as an absence, but as a foundation, the strong base upon which I had built everything that followed. Her love had been unconditional in a family where love typically came with strings attached. That gift had ultimately allowed me to recognize when relationships were healthy, and when they were not, to set boundaries where needed, and to build connections based on genuine care rather than obligation. The hard-won wisdom of the past year settled around me like a comfortable blanket. I had learned that walking away from toxic dynamics wasn't giving up. It was a step toward creating something better. That confronting painful patterns wasn't causing trouble. It was creating the possibility for healing. That standing alone was sometimes necessary before you could truly stand together. As I prepared for bed that night, I paused before my mother's photograph on my nightstand. I think I finally understand what you were trying to teach me all along, I whispered. That family isn't about who you're born to. It's about who you choose to become, and who chooses to stand beside you through that journey. The road ahead would still have its complications. Family dynamics established over generations don't transform overnight, and residency would continue to test my limits professionally. But I face these challenges now from a place of hard-won strength and clarity. I had stopped waiting for a seat at a table where I wasn't valued. Instead, I had built my own table, one large enough for all who wished to connect authentically, with no one left standing outside.